I woke that Tuesday with a metallic taste in my mouth. It wasn't coffee, wasn't blood, wasn't fear, it was fatigue that seemed to have shape. The ceiling of my house, the historic house on Bull Street in Savannah, had wooden veins running like ancient rivers. And the cracks, so fine, reminded me of palm lines belonging to someone who'd lived long enough to know that luck is lazy and fate, a methodical clerk. I touched my tongue to my teeth. There was a slowness in my muscles, as if I'd swum at dawn against the Savannah River tide and returned to bed without drying off. "Good morning, Dad," came the overly polite voice of Lydia, my middle daughter, who had slept in the guest room under the pretense of caring for me. "I brought your orange juice with vitamins." The juice's color screamed. It erased the morning like cheap neon. I smelled the citrus and a second odor, graceless, the pharmaceutical trail of ground pills. I looked at the tall glass like someone evaluating a contract. I'd signed many contracts in life. Some I tore in lawyers' faces. Others I accepted because the time to fight exceeded the expected profit. The glass said, trust. The smell said, sleep. "Coffee, Lydia?" I asked, voice gentle. "The juice can wait until after the newspaper." She smiled. "Perfect teeth, press secretary speech, commercial hour appearances. The doctor thinks it's better to reduce caffeine, remember? You've been forgetting things." Forgetting things. The phrase parked in the hallway like furniture. No one knew exactly where to place. My hands, despite being steady, trembled slightly. Not from weakness, from calculation. On the other side of the wall, I heard light footsteps. Paul, the eldest, lawyer of causes that yield newspaper photographs, and Nathan, the youngest, who confused cleverness with character. Sons. Their voices came like whispers that had grown accustomed to complicity. "Today's the day. I've already arranged transport," Paul murmured, thinking century-old walls have no memory. "Everything with the clinic is perfect. Paperwork, evaluation, doctor's signature, ... double quotes, doctor's signature." My tongue found the metallic taste again. It wasn't fear. It was indignation with hospital perfume. I'd always been a precise man. I grew up in my father's workshop, who repaired clocks and pianos with the same liturgical patience. Later, I became a businessman because I learned early that other people's time is the only resource whose scarcity no one discusses publicly. We founded a logistics company during the years Savannah decided to wake up to tourism and containers. I delivered goods to half the world without ever missing a deadline. But that morning, my children were trying to deliver me to a place from which few return without losing a piece of themselves. A nursing home. Not a home, a word people use when they want to sleep peacefully. A nursing home with white walls and rules they call protocols. Lydia offered me the glass again. I took it, smiled, and like someone tasting expensive wine so as not to insult the host, wet my lip and let the liquid touch my tongue without swallowing. I pulled a handkerchief from my robe pocket, an old handkerchief with my initials sewn by Emily, my late wife, and, discreetly, spit the minimum possible into the fabric, folding it twice, storing it like storing longing. Revenge, I discovered late, is a domestic art. You fold it, store it, wait. "Kenneth." Paul entered the room with a leather folder and the authority of someone who never swept his own floor. "Dr. Sawyer will come at 10. Then, discreet transport. The clinic is excellent, highly recommended." Lydia and Nathan agreed. "It's for your own good." "For my own good," I repeated, tasting the words on my gums. When did my good stop being listening to me? Nathan leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, expensive watch like a billboard on his wrist. "You've been, well, ... confused, dodging appointments. You forgot the meeting with the historic preservation lawyer last week. You said it was Tuesday. It was Thursday. It's not your fault, Dad. Age arrives. Had I forgotten the meeting? Or had they given me pills with gentle names and silent effects?" The answer was in the handkerchief weighing in my pocket. And in another place, older, in the house's basements, where the air smells of mahogany and sea. I'd installed, 2 months ago, small discrete cameras in picture frames, not from paranoia, but from habit. The historic house always attracted curious visitors. I wanted memory, not surveillance. Memory. "Do what you think best," I replied, with a serenity I bought outright. after many interest payments to life. But first, I want to go downstairs a bit. See the light. The gardener left the camellias perfect. Paul checked his watch. Quickly, Dr. Sawyer hates delays. Who doesn't? I murmured, and stood up. Each pine stair-step sounded a syllable. Cend. The hallway exhaled wax and memories. On the wall, Emily's portrait accompanied me with oblique sweetness. She never approved out loud, never needed to. In the living room, by the window overlooking the oak with Spanish moss, I saw the reflection of the new neighbor from next door, a more modest but honest construction, like a handshake. He was sweeping the porch with the care of those who've worked jobs that don't permit distraction. I'd seen him arrive 2 months ago, with few belongings and a large toolbox. A man in his 40s, very attentive eyes. The silence of someone who listens before responding. His name is Miguel Alvarez. I knew because names eventually reach us like letters without return addresses, through the street's mouth. They said he used to be a firefighter. They said he'd moved to care for his mother. They said he was a hero once and doesn't talk about it. The street invents. I, who was never a hero, only know he looks at buildings like someone evaluating bones. He saw me, raised his hand. I returned with a short gesture. Lydia hurried. Dad, sit down. Don't start talking to neighbors now. I sat. But Miguel had already crossed the sidewalk. With that step that doesn't threaten and doesn't ask permission, simply arrives. He knocked at the wooden door. Nathan frowned, as if the intrusion came with a price. Good morning, Mr. Kenneth, Miguel said. Tired baritone voice, hat in hand. You forgot this yesterday on the porch, and handed me a brown envelope. There was no envelope. I understood the gesture, a discreet offer of conversation. Thank you, Miguel. Come in for a moment, I invited. With the slight corner-of-mouth twist Emily called my retired judge humor, Lydia opened her social smile. Ah, the neighbor. Good. We're in a delicate moment, but it won't be long, I cut, with the velvet used to refuse a dance. Miguel entered and, crossing the door, his eyes swept the room like someone measuring a space in darkness. He saw Paul's folder, felt the climate, found my gaze. I gave 3 nail taps on the armchair arm, like marking tempo. He nodded, almost imperceptible. He sat on the sofa's edge, body ready to rise at any moment. Something happened, Mr. Kenneth? He asked, looking at me but speaking so my children could also hear. What happened is that, according to my heirs, I've unlearned to count, I replied. They say I confuse Tuesday with Thursday, and that orange juice cures longing. But as you know, the house doesn't forget certain things. The room remembers every laugh and every secret. And I know how to recognize morning smells, Miguel. Today's has an additive. Lydia closed her expression. Dad, that's parano. Paranoia is when we fight ghosts. I spoke without raising my voice. Here there are flesh and blood people, and papers. And papers. Miguel cleared his throat, without ceremony. May I be direct? He asked. Didn't wait. I've seen this before. Not here, but in another house, another neighborhood. Elderly person doped with light sedatives disguised as sleep supplement. Humble, without marks. Easy to explain, age, until the transport arrives. I worked as a paramedic with the firefighters. I know the difference between fatigue and being slowly erased. Silence. Paul adjusted his tie. You're accusing ... I'm informing, Miguel responded. You, doctor, decide what you want to do with the information. The wall clock, family inheritance, struck 10 with a dignity that dismissed audience. My hands stopped trembling. I had an advantage my children didn't know. No contract we signed as family was worth more than the clauses I'd written in secret with myself when Emily died. Among them, one sufficed. Don't allow the house to become silence an hour before necessary. Miguel, I spoke. I need 2 things. First, that you help me go down through the back door when I ask. Second, that you take this forgotten envelope to Delegate Price, my old acquaintance. Paul stepped forward. Dad, this is ridiculous. You'll expose yourself to the street, to gossip. The clinic is ready. There's nothing wrong with caring ... What's wrong? I replied calmly. Is caring for my money before caring for my coffee. I wish the best for you, but I won't hand over my breath to a protocol. Let's do this. Dr. Sawyer can examine me. Here, But without juices, without vitamins, without diligence from those who don't live in this skin. If he finds I'm a danger, call the transport. If not, lower the tone of this rush. Lydia nodded with that laminated condescension. Of course, Dad. The doctor is trustworthy. Trust. A word that scrapes the ear when spoken by someone who sold their own for a discount on haste. I stood up, went to the bookshelf, took a blue-covered volume. It wasn't a book. It was an antique wooden safe I'd commissioned from a luthier friend. Outside, romance. Inside, memory. I took out a flash drive and put it in my pants pocket. Discrete cameras, audio, dates, hallway conversations, speakerphone discussions with the real estate broker, the word sale thrown like someone tossing breadcrumbs to the sidewalk to attract pigeons. Everything there when Dr. Sawyer arrived. In a light suit, with the smile of someone who'd already charged for consultations that lasted less than the breadline. I was sitting with my black coffee mug. Yes, coffee, and the newspaper open to the obituaries page, a habit of someone who learned to say goodbye by reading. The doctor greeted my children with a handshake that gave receipts. On me, he placed a gaze soldered to a script. Mr. Whitmore. He called me by surname, as if returning formality I hadn't requested. Your children are worried. They report forgetfulness, confusion. I'd like to ask some questions and do a simple exam. All right, I replied. But one detail. No evaluation will be valid unless you agree to collect a strand of my hair and some of the juice offered to me earlier for toxicology. He blinked. Paul cleared his throat. Lydia rolled her eyes with elegance. Nathan laughed with a sound too short to be innocent. There's no need ... double quotes, the doctor began. There is, Miguel interrupted from the door, like someone opening a window in a stuffy room. I was a paramedic. I can collect, seal, take to the county lab. If it comes clean, great. If not, even better. The doctor hesitated, looked at Paul, and in that, my inner verdict was given. Doctors look at patients. Consultants look at whoever pays. Let's proceed, I yielded. The questions, doctor. He pulled out a clipboard. What day is today? I smiled with my eyes. The day you decided to remember, you swore to do no harm. No, I'm asking for the date, Mr. Whitmore. Tuesday, May 14th. The pastor's grandson's piano lesson starts at 3. He goes flat on B-flat and his mother's embarrassed to say, the river wind lifts the Spanish moss this morning toward the east, so it'll rain this afternoon. He noted something, perhaps a comment about elaborate responses. The consultation continued with that choreography of fingers, pens, and terms that serve paper more than pulse. I answered everything. I remembered the names of Savannah mayors I'd seen pass, and the names of dogs I'd buried in the garden. Chico. Then Emily said that was an artist's name, so we adopted Sophie. Then Jonas, a mutt who seemed like a philosopher. I counted how many steps the staircase has. I counted where it creaks. I counted. I saw, from the corner of my eye, Miguel discreetly collecting a strand of my hair, storing it in an envelope with a label that gave more dignity to that morning than any speech. When the doctor left, promising to forward the report, I heard a van motor parking in front of the house. White paint, blue letters saying Transition Services. The term is gentle like a doormat. Welcome. I held the armchair arm. I remembered the handkerchief in my pocket. I took one step, then another. It's time, Paul announced, like someone saying the contract expired. It is, I confirmed, but not for me, Miguel. Miguel was already where he needed to be, near the back door, with the key I'd left in the mailbox in hand. I just got a call from Delegate Price, he lied without blinking, with the elegance of those who were to succeed. He asked for Mr. Kenneth to stop by the station to clarify a house matter. It's quick. Property registration procedure. You know how it is. Paper is jealous. That doesn't exist, Nathan shot back. The registration exists, I replied, and walked to the kitchen, where the back door leads to the narrow corridor between houses. A corridor only known by those who lived here before map apps. And what also exists is the right to come and go. And if it doesn't bother you, I'm going. Lydia tried to hold my arm with authoritative sweetness. I dodged with the patience given to the insistent. Paul said something about emergency guardianship. I no longer heard. The sound of my steps on the tile reminded me of an old blues tempo, the cold metal of the doorknob, the texture of the world that still belongs to me. Miguel opened. The corridor air came with the smell of wet earth, despite the sun. I went out. 2 steps. 3. Miguel's backyard had a gate that led to the alley where, in my time, carts passed. Today, secrets pass. "Quick, Mr. Kenneth," he said, low voice. "The van saw you didn't come down the front." "I don't run," I replied, "but I speed up when the clock commands." We walked some blocks through shadows and shortcuts only trained feet know. The heart, which sometimes plays tricks just to prove it works, decided to cooperate. We got in Miguel's own vehicle, an old pickup, honored with rust, and, minutes later, we were at the station. Delegate Price, black, tall, with the belly of someone who doesn't refuse Sunday barbecues, received me with a hug I accept, the embrace of someone who knows that a tough reputation balances with private tenderness. "Kenneth, you're up to something, huh?" he said, without censure. "Miguel called me. What's happening?" "My children are in a hurry," I replied. And when haste enters through the front, dignity escapes through the back door. I have reason to believe they tried to sedate me in recent days. I have samples. I have recordings. I have, finally, more self-respect than patience for theater. Price nodded. "Serious matter. Elder abuse. We'll handle it. I need your consent to request a search and seizure warrant for documents and electronics from the house, and a protection order against forced removal. Can you handle testifying?" "I can handle it," I replied. "What I can't handle is flavored juice." We signed papers. Miguel took the toxicology envelope to the county lab with the urgency given to birth announcements. In 2 hours, Price had a judge on the line. In 3, there was a warrant. The white van waited in front of my house until it exhausted patience. My children, without the show's protagonist, tried to redirect the script. The script changed hands. When we returned to the house with police, the Spanish moss swayed like theater curtains opening. Officers collected pills, glasses, notes. Lydia's computer went silent at the exact point where she was searching. How to declare elderly person refusing clinic incapable. Paul's phone pinged with messages from a broker about market window to sell a historic property ready for modernization. Nathan had left on the table a folder with clinic brochures, marked with a sticker, "Room with view, silence guaranteed." "Silence guaranteed," I repeated, to no one. Excessive generosity is frequently a mask. Price also collected my recordings. I'd shown him, at the station, excerpts where, in the kitchen, Lydia whispers to Paul, "If we don't do it now, he'll change the will again." And Paul's response, "I already changed with the doctor. It's an evaluation, paper rules." I knew the power of papers. I'd built half my life with them. That's why I had made mine in advance. An irrevocable trust with criminal contestation clause. A representation power that only activated with signatures from 2 independent doctors without financial ties to heirs and, mainly, a singular disposition I learned from an old notary in Charleston. The house couldn't be sold during the holder's lifetime without approval from a preservation council, composed of 3 trusted members. 2 of them were dead friends. The 3rd I'd left open. That afternoon, while my children tried to explain to police that everything was a misunderstanding, that they just wanted to care for Dad, preliminary toxicology came through Price's phone. The lab detected traces of benzodiazepines in my hair and blood that didn't match any of my medical prescriptions. And in the juice, a medium-action sedative. Price's voice, on speakerphone, sounded clear in the large room. "We have material to open an investigation, Mr. Whitmore. Do you want to press criminal charges for elder abuse, attempted unlawful confinement, and administration of substance without consent?" I breathed. I saw Lydia's face change color like a summer sunset when clouds cover the sun. Paul bit his lip. Nathan, for the first time, lowered his eyes. "I want to," I replied, "and I want protective measures. Order them not to approach my house without invitation, and to return all keys. My house speaks to me again today, and I to it. Public humiliation is a beast many raise at home, fed by small oversights and misplaced statements." When the news came out, 85-year-old businessman denounces children for forced internment attempt. Police investigate abuse. The street, that always pretends not to read newspapers, started commenting loudly, as if it were whisper. I closed the windows for 2 days. Not from shame, but to organize my internal shelves. Revenge, to avoid becoming mere score settling, needs to be born from friendship with one's own dignity. Miguel spent every afternoon, without invading, fixing the hinge that always sang off-key, adjusting the library door track, evaluating the brick, changing the hallway bulb without asking anything in return. In silence, we became friends. He told me about his mother, Donna Isabella, recent Alzheimer's memory, a woman who confused seasons but never forgot his name. He told me that, in the last year, he promised himself that no elderly person under his sight would be pushed out of their own life without thorough examination of truth. I listened, and in exchange, I told about Emily, about the children when they were small, about Lydia's first bicycle, bought with counted money, and how Paul liked to disassemble radios to see them work inside. It was curiosity, not malice. What was lost along the way was addiction to shortcuts. On the third day, a summary hearing was scheduled at the county courthouse. Judge Ralston, man with eyes of someone who'd seen all possible combinations of greed and excuse, heard my testimony. I spoke little, enough. Your Honor, I don't ask for pity. I ask for judgment. Age didn't soak me with special rights, but also didn't remove those that belonged to me since I signed my first contract with my own fingers. I'm lucid. The haste they tried to impose on me is interested haste. I brought proof. I'm not alone. Miguel confirmed the collections. Price confirmed the procedures. Final toxicology arrived like someone delivering a sentence calmly. Benzodiazepines present at levels incompatible with indicated therapeutic use. Paul's lawyer gave a calibrated speech, mentioning supposed prevention and legitimate concern. Lydia cried without tears. Nathan, with a childhood tic resurrected in the corner of his left eye, avoided my gaze until it hurt me more than I'd say. Ralston read Dr. Sawyer's report, which tried to balance on a tightrope. Some date confusion was observed, but there are no elements to declare incapacity. Juggler. The judge nodded and spoke with the severe elegance of afternoons when law meets the street. Mr. Whitmore, the court formally returns your full freedom and recognizes your capacity. I determine protective measures, order immediate return of keys, passwords, and documents belonging to the petitioner, and open criminal proceedings to investigate descendants' responsibility. As for inheritance and trusts, it will leave this court's jurisdiction. But I note that any attempt to alienate the property without approval from the Preservation Council, approved by the holder, is null. The word null sounded like a bell in the house's chest. Emily somewhere must have smiled with the same brief irony with which she made me chamomile tea. Now, perhaps you expect me to say I left the courthouse with shoulders heavy with sadness. No, I left like someone returning a book to the right shelf. But lightness has a commitment to something harder, deciding what to do with others' weight. Revenge is a knife with a mirror handle. We see ourselves in. I returned home. I sat on the step that creaks. The afternoon air brought river salt and sugar from a cake baking in some neighbor's kitchen. Miguel appeared with 2 glasses of water and a question. And now? Now, I write, I replied. The rest adjusts when words sit at the table. I wrote letters, one for each child, without insults, without screams, with facts and memories in the same proportion. To Paul, I wrote that a good lawyer knows the difference between power and authorization, and that, when he was a boy, he always apologized even when the fault was the dog's, that he should recover that reflex. To Lydia, I recalled the day she learned that photography also lies, and that not every filter improves skin. Sometimes it just disguises it. To Nathan, I told about his cleverness that enchanted me when he was 6 and put coins in Grandpa's pocket to lend the next day with interest in candy. That now, in his 30s, the joke had lost its charm. I ended each letter with an invitation. If you want to talk to me, ask in writing. I'll respond. The house listens to papers. I changed the will, not from anger, from architecture. The trust remained, but with an addendum. Any heir convicted of elder abuse, attempted unlawful confinement, or patrimony fraud would lose not only the share, but also the right to contest donations. In their place, I indicated the creation of a domiciliary foundation, the Emily Whitmore House, dedicated to music and memory, offering weekly recitals, listening workshops for families caring for elderly, and a small fund to train caregivers. The house, my house, would stop being a trophy on others' shelves and become a living room for those who need to hear and be heard. The Preservation Council, before with 2 dead friends, gained a 3rd member, Miguel Alvarez. He tried to refuse. I insisted with the stubbornness that now served me for good things. "I don't need gratitude, Mr. Kenneth," he said. "I need judgment nearby," I replied, "and someone who knows how to differentiate fatigue from imposed silence. It's not a prize. It's work." He agreed. We worked. We opened the house on Saturdays for guided tours that didn't just talk about architecture, but about care, rights, family plots. We invited a retired prosecutor to explain, without Latin, what legal guardianship is and when it becomes abuse. We brought a musician from the conservatory to play Debussy in the room where Emily taught piano to children who paid with flowers. The Spanish moss seemed to listen. The city, which sometimes uses its scandals like forgotten umbrellas, came, some from curiosity, others from true kindness. In all visits, someone asked me about my children. I responded with the same phrase, which I pushed into routine like pushing an old clock to the right wall. They're learning slowly that haste delays, and that love doesn't sign blank powers of attorney. A month later, the first criminal hearing. The evidence was solid. Dr. Sawyer, seeing himself in an unflattering mirror, collaborated. He admitted the consultation was rushed, confirmed the pills found had no associated prescription. He said he trusted family information. Ralston listened. Set a new date. Public humiliation, which many confuse with justice, knocked at the door. I didn't invite it in. I closed the rumor window and opened the music one. It was on the 2nd Saturday of the open house that Nathan appeared, without fanfare, without lawyer. The eye tick more marked than before. He asked to speak with me in the garden, near the camellias. Miguel observed from afar, like comfortable shadow. "Dad," Nathan said, holding the compact confession of someone not born to admit faults. I was wrong. I didn't applaud the obvious. Mistakes have economic class, Nathan. Some travel by bus, others first class. Yours came by private jet. Why? He looked at the street, pressed his lips. Fear of losing the life I built with installments of your pride and money, you said, was for later. I thought if the house were sold now, I could save a business. And I thought you'd accept the clinic, that it would even be more comfortable. Paul said it was the best path. Lydia said I was always the one who stood out. I kept pushing the blame to the lighter side. And doping your father seemed light to you? No. I mean, I didn't think it would be so well. The word fled from him, like words flee when the mirror doesn't smile. I didn't mix anything. I was the one who brought the juice. I knew. I didn't stop. There's no phrase that solves this. Only work. You'll answer in court. I don't interfere. But here, in the house, there's a type of work that might still save you from yourself. What? Wednesday, at 6, support group for caregivers. You'll serve tea, clarify practical doubts about medication changes. Listen to stories from those who care from love and obligation. You'll listen. And you'll stay after 2 hours, helping catalog donations for the foundation fund for 6 months. Without speeches, without selfies, without publicity. After that, we'll talk again. He nodded, eyes shining the way I shine when they realize nobody died, but something was born. Lydia and Paul arrived at other times, each with a speech. Paul tried to convince me that an agreement would reduce damages. I explained that damages aren't numbers. Lydia brought flowers. I thanked her, changed the vase water, and asked her to sit and listen to a conservatory student's recital. She cried, this time with tears. I didn't comment. When music ends, what you say ruins it. The process continued. The city continued doing what cities do: work, gossip, survive. I continued getting up slowly, breathing to the pocket watch rhythm, allowing the house to tell me its small stories. I discovered that 3:40 afternoon light crosses the library stained glass and draws on the floor a C-rectangle that, if I placed a chair in it, panes seemed to ask permission. I discovered that corn cake smell from the back street faithfully announces visits from Donna Eulalia, who left Mississippi 50 years ago and still says "see" like someone biting an apple. I discovered that revenge, well done, creates peaceful routine. It's not spectacle, it's maintenance. At summer's end, another hearing. Ralston, with that gaze carrying the city on his shoulders. Read the partial sentence. There were elements for Paul and Lydia to answer for administration of substance without consent and attempted unlawful confinement. As for Nathan, subsequent cooperation and absence of direct evidence of pill mixing weighed in favor of an alternative sentence, conditioned on community service if the prosecutor accepted. Justice sometimes permits compassion without flirting with naivety. I breathed. I asked for nothing. What I could do, I was already doing at home. That night, I sat with Miguel on the porch. The air came sweet. The Spanish moss, ancient green, swayed in a major chord. You could have gone to a nursing home, you know? Miguel said, without sarcasm. The story could have had a short ending. Stories only get short when we let them, I replied. The rest is editing by those in a hurry. We stayed quiet a while. I remembered Emily. I remembered the boys with scraped knees running through the hallway. I remembered a night when the storm took the power and we lit candles and Emily played so the children wouldn't notice the wind's sound. I remembered the first time they called me old, years ago, and I thought it was a compliment. Miguel, I called. Do you know how to fix clocks? No, he laughed. I know how to fix things with thick screws. Clocks humble me. I'll teach you the basics, at least to listen. The rest comes. He got serious. I accept, but with one condition. Say it. Then you teach me to listen to people with the same attention you listen to clocks. I still get confused when someone spills an entire pane in front of me. Nobody learns that, Miguel, I replied. We just decide not to leave the room. Autumn arrived like a minor chord. The house gained the smell of books being read again. The foundation grew, small and stubborn. We received a letter from the Preservation Society, formal recognition for the program Uniting Heritage and Care. We also received anonymous emails from people saying our story helped them take their hand off a father's shoulder. Reconsider precipitated interment, seek a second doctor, refuse juice. Not all revenge needs audience, but when the stage is the entire city, it's wise to use the text carefully. One afternoon, I found, in the back of the desk drawer, a note from Emily, one of those she hid like Easter eggs in April. When the house is sad, open the back window. The river knows how to enter. I opened it. The river entered, and with it, the certainty I'd returned to living in my life. The children? They still exist. They're still mine. Blood doesn't learn new streets easily. Paul, in the end, received his sentence, which included mandatory lectures at shelters and a period of suspension from exercising certain functions until completing ethics courses. He left the courthouse smaller than he entered, and months later came here at night with a timid request to hear Debussy sitting in the room's farthest corner. I left the door open. Lydia, after fulfilling conditions and providing services at a senior center, wrote an article unsigned about guardianship, temptation, and good intentions photography. I recognized her hand. I smiled without warning. Nathan continued coming on Wednesdays, serving tea with hands that learned to hold cups without spilling guilt. One day, he asked me if, when I'm gone, the house will really become a music room. I said yes. He cried with his whole body, and I looked at the moss, asking that no one see me almost cry too. And me? I continue, slower, lighter, with less hurry to die and more hurry not to miss the 6 o'clock recital. I run my hand on the banister wood that knows my name. Sometimes, I put my ear to the old clock's chest and hear it respond with the patience of those who cross centuries. Tick-tock. It's not a sentence. It's company. The house, after all, wasn't sold. My life wasn't delivered to an institution that calls routine protocol. My children learned, the most expensive way, that confusing care with control has a high price and public receipt. The city learned that perfect coup rehearsal becomes scandal when an unlikely neighbor hears the sound evil makes when trying to wear slippers. And I learned, finally, something you might already know. Revenge can be a closed fist, but it can also be a hand that closes the door calmly and opens the music window. Here, in Savannah, on Bull Street, the house breathes again. I breathe along. And when morning brings, again, that metallic taste, I remember the folded handkerchief, the flash drive hidden in the blue cover, Miguel's gaze at the doorframe, and I laugh quietly with the irony that learns to respect wrinkles. It wasn't forgetfulness. Lydia, it was too much memory to fit in juice. Time passes. The piano sounds. The street speaks. I don't argue with destiny. I just ask it to speak softly. And when it doesn't comply, I ring the neighbor's doorbell. Because some life doors open from inside. Others, we open through the back door. The following winter, on one of those days when Savannah pretends to be Boston for a few hours, I received a letter stamped with the court seal. The criminal process was approaching its end. There would be a final hearing, this time to hear victims and accused, with space for final statements. Miguel insisted on accompanying me. I agree. Thank you for staying with me and listening. Your attention is a gift. Did these minutes mean something to you? Then please, follow the channel.